Okay, so let's unpack this. We've been handed the blueprint for, well, a really ambitious historical drama series.
Uh-huh.
It's set right on the knife's edge, as they call it, of early 19th century Ohio. We're talking about 1806 to 1810, a pretty critical time.
Right. And the sources we're looking at, they aren't just, giving us a plot summary.
No, not at all.
They're using this fictional story as a way to dig deep, a real excavation into what it actually meant to survive, to build an identity on that early American frontier.
Yeah, and what strikes me is how the material frames this whole thing. It's like a lesson in foundational American identity, but forged in, well, crisis, fire, hardship.
Exactly. It's a detailed analysis, really, focusing on this two-season arc. And it centers on the transformation, physical and moral, of this small, kind of fragile settlement near 10 Mile Creek.
Okay, so our mission today, our deep dive, is to track that specific shift.
Precisely. How that non-negotiable hardship, particularly the fact that their buildings kept getting destroyed,
Yeah.
how that forced them to ditch the easy stuff like wood.
And commit fully to stone and brick, more resilient materials.
Right. Because they had no other choice, essentially.
So the actual buildings become a metaphor for the society itself.
Perfectly put. Yeah. They start out brittle, vulnerable.
And they're forced, literally forced, to become harder, more unified. So we need to figure out how that necessity didn't just, test them,
Right.
but actually changed their whole value system. And crucially, what they decided was important enough to teach the next generation.
That's the core of it. What becomes education when survival is the only curriculum?
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. The story kicks off with Elizabeth Crane. She's called Star, a polished schoolmistress from Boston, but she's fleeing something big, a betrayal by her husband, a banker, back in 1806.
As he heads west. A classic trope, but with a twist.
Right, she wants to start over, establish a one-room schoolhouse, full of idealism, probably.
You'd imagine.
Yeah.
But the Ohio frontier,
Yeah.
it hits different, doesn't it?
Go ahead. Instantly. She runs straight into these three conflicting forces, three completely different ideas about what education and even just survival should look like out there.
It's this clash of philosophies right there in that frontier crucible. First up, you've got Colonel Hartley.
Hartley. Okay, who does he represent?
He's the state, basically. The idea of civic order, but a very basic version of it.
So what does he want from education?
Pure pragmatism. Minimal stuff.
Yeah.
Functional literacy. Can they count rations, do basic sums? Can they read enough to follow military orders?
That's it.
That's pretty much it. He's
Yes.
not interested in fostering, deep intellectual curiosity. Keep it simple. Keep him obedient.
Okay. Low ceiling there. And then contrasting that, you mentioned Preacher Fenwick. Wick.
Wick, yeah.
Mm.
He's the church. Rigid moral authority personified.
And he likes the school.
Hates it. Openly hostile. Sees it as a total distraction. Maybe even dangerous. A waste of good resources.
What's his priority then?
A proper church. That needs to be built first. Doctrine, moral control, that's everything. Anything that smells like intellectual freedom, no. For Fenwick, the only education that matters is spiritual discipline.
Wow. So state control versus church control. But neither sounds particularly helpful for not starving or getting raided.
Exactly. How did those big ideas, minimal function from the state, strict morality from the church, how did they stack up against the actual daily requirements of living on that land?
Which brings us to?
The Kincaids.
Yeah.
They're the practical minds, the agricultural and engineering savvy of the settlement.
Okay, so they're different.
Completely. They dismiss the Boston manners and the religious dogma. Their focus is 100% on long-term material survival. How do we build better? How do we grow more?
They're the quiet experts, the savants, pushing for real change.
That's it. They advocate for a practical education, things like sophisticated construction, how to quarry stone, how to make bricks properly, advanced farming techniques.
Because they see the writing on the wall.
Constantly. They keep warning everyone. These flimsy timber buildings, they just won't last. Not with the constant cycle of destruction they're facing from these raids.
And the sources are clear. The Kincaids were absolutely right.
Brutally clear. The thing that finally shatters the community's attachment to the old ways is that repeated vulnerability of wood.
Elizabeth's first schoolhouse.
Made of wood. And it gets burned down repeatedly in these raids.
So it's not just a plot point. It's a fundamental failure.
It's non-negotiable. If your shelter, your place of learning, can just go up in smoke that easily,
Yeah.
well, your future is basically non-existent. You can't build anything lasting.
That's a critical point. That destruction forces everyone, the whole community, and the story itself to change direction. The lesson becomes starkly simple. Security doesn't come from just faith or minimal obedience.
It comes from materials that can't be burned. Stone, brick, permanence.
Which leads us straight into Season 2. The sources call it the craft revolution.
Yeah, and this is where the story, for me, gets really powerful. Because education stops being this abstract ideal.
And becomes purely about necessity, about self-determination.
Exactly. And it's driven by a real tragedy at its core.
What happens?
The children's mother, Amma, she's of Ghanaian heritage, brought over. Earlier, she gets recaptured, forcibly taken back to Georgia.
Oh, wow. Leaving her 3 mixed heritage kids.
Orphaned, alone on the frontier. And the sources really emphasize this, that loss becomes the engine driving their new reality. They have to figure out their own futures, based purely on survival and, importantly, find a legal way forward.
So they don't just grieve, they pivot towards practical skills.
Immediately. They adopt the 3 core trades that the settlement now understands it desperately needs.
Okay, what are they?
First, Eli, the older boy. He becomes a brick mason.
Why brick?
Because the wood kept burning down. Simple as that. Brick meant security, endurance, a direct response to the raids.
He just picks it up.
Well, this is where the sources add a crucial layer of detail. It's not just about learning the skill. Eli secures a formal apprenticeship.
Where?
At the new Miami University work sites, nearby in Oxford, Ohio. Remember, Miami University was founded right around then, 1809.
Okay, why is that specific detail important? Miami University.
Because that apprenticeship wasn't just job training. It provided a legitimate, state-sanctioned path. It offered the boys legal protection, a kind of stability that Elizabeth's initial, maybe more informal school couldn't give them.
Got it. It roots them legally, makes them official.
Exactly. And then there's Ben, the younger boy. He takes a different but related path.
What does he do?
He becomes a stonemason, focuses on quarrying the local limestone, which is much harder work, more permanent than brick even.
And learning how to bond it.
Right, using local clay mortar. Again, it's all about durability, resilience, born directly out of that failure of timber against the frontier threats.
And the Kincaids are guiding them.
They're the key mentors for both boys, yeah. Constantly pushing for the permanence of stone, the reliability of brick, over the vulnerability of wood.
Okay, so Eli does brick, Ben does stone. What about the daughter, Naomi?
Ah, Naomi. Her past is maybe the most immediate, poignant response to crisis.
Yeah.
She becomes the settlement's medicinal herbs person.
Like a healer.
Essentially, yeah. She even constructs this meticulous glass and timber greenhouse to cultivate them properly.
But why herbs? Was it just an interest?
Not according to the sources. It wasn't born from curiosity. It was born from environmental disaster. They specifically mention waves of disease described as plague weather hitting the settlement.
Leaving them devastated.
Because, as the source says, everyone was dying. Her skill becomes this compassionate necessity, forced into existence by the immediate need to stop people from dying.
Wow. So you've got Elizabeth, the original teacher, providing the intellectual spark, maybe the initial framework. Then the boys provide the physical endurance, the actual backbone of the settlement through brick and stone.
The structure, yeah.
And Naomi provides the compassion, the healing, the immediate care.
It's like the 3 essential components they needed to transform, to go from just a collection of temporary huts to something resembling a permanent community.
Intellect, endurance, and compassion.
All forged by the absolute harshest realities. Fire, disease, and the ever-present threat of capture or violence. It's a beautifully structured narrative arc in the source material.
Okay, now this next part, the moral revolution arc. This sounds fascinating. The original antagonists, Hartley and Fenwick, they become allies.
That's the turn, yeah.
But how? I mean, that seems like a big leap. How do the sources justify that shift? What's the mechanism?
Well, it's not like they suddenly see the light in some purely altruistic way. The mechanism is largely self-interest, driven by recognizing unavoidable necessity.
Okay, take Colonel Hartley first, the order guy.
Right. Hartley starts to realize that Eli and Ben's work, the actual physical act of building things that last, quarrying stone, making brick, is in itself a form of defense. It's a military asset.
So he sees the strategic value.
Exactly. So he formally authorizes their work. He designates their quarrying and brickmaking as service of civic need.
And that's important because...
Because that legal maneuver is crucial. It officially registers them as apprentices under military protection, which shields them from bounty hunters who might try to claim them as runaway property.
So he uses the law not to control them this time, but to protect them.
A complete shift. He trades absolute control for the practical benefit of community protection and resilience.
That's huge. Okay, what about Preacher Fenwick, the guy who hated the school, wanted doctrine over everything?
Fenwick's transformation is much more personal.
And physical.
He gets sick, gravely ill.
With the same kind of illness.
The very kind of affliction Naomi has trained herself to treat with her herbs.
No way.
Yes. So the moralist, the man who dismissed practical knowledge, is literally saved by it, by Naomi's herbs.
So his foe becomes his savior.
Pretty much. He's forced to become a deeply grateful ally. And the source highlights his act of atonement. He donates his precious church bells, the ones he'd been saving for his own future church, to the new school tower.
Wow. Trading the bells meant for dogma, for the bell calling kids to learn practical skills. That's incredibly symbolic.
It really is. And it all culminates in this new sermon he delivers right at the commencement ceremony for the school.
What does he say?
He basically crystallizes the entire community's shift. He says, faith without learning is a roof without rafters.
Powerful.
Yeah. He finally acknowledges that belief, faith, whatever you want to call it, needs practical, learned, structural support to actually endure in the real world. He completely moves away from abstract dogma towards lived practicality.
Okay, this all builds to the climax then, the final episode called Commencement, where the building itself, the stone and brick, literally provides the defense.
That's right. Bounty hunters show up. They've got warrants demanding the mulatto miners, as they call them.
So the ultimate test of everything they've built and become.
Exactly. Will this new unity, this new structure hold? The defense is fascinating. It's like a three-pronged strategy.
Okay, what's the first prong?
Legal defense. Colonel Hartley steps up, invokes frontier law, states clearly these boys are registered apprentices under his military protection. Hands off.
Using his authority protectively again. Nice. Second prong.
Moral defense. Preacher Fenwick, the man who once preached rigid obedience, now uses scripture for liberation. He quotes Exodus. You shall not hand over the slave who seeks refuge with you.
Turning the tables completely.
Aligning the moral and legal borders against the external threat. It's a powerful moment.
But you said three prongs. What's the third?
Well, maybe the most powerful defense is the physical proof of the children's belonging. Their labor made manifest.
How so?
Eli and Ben literally wheel out this massive, rough-hewn stone block they've just finished carving.
What does it say?
It's engraved. Mishaqua School, 1809. It's this undeniable symbol. We belong here. We built this. It's not just a building. It's their commitment made solid.
Wow. And Naomi, does she have a role in this standoff?
She does, and it's perfectly in character. While the men are arguing law and scripture, she provides the third defense, a quieter one.
What does she do?
She gently tends to the bounty hunters' shivering horses, gives them some warm herb water.
An act of compassion, even towards them.
Exactly, this quiet, humane act. And the source notes it causes one of the lead hunters, his resolve just visibly falters. It wrong-foots them.
So the combination, impenetrable stone, unshakable law, and this unexpected empathy.
It's too much. It's this perfect, rough-hewn unity they've forged. The hunters just retreat. They can't cross that unified border.
The community held.
It did. They moved from being this fragile, easily destroyed wooden settlement defined by vulnerability
to a resilient entity defined by shared strength, built from the ground up.
And the school is then formally dedicated to all children of this soil. They unveil their combined work. The quarry stone step engraved strengths through understanding. And the finished school building itself, this blend of Eli's enduring brick, Ben's solid local stone, and Naomi's delicate, life-giving glass greenhouse. Intellect, endurance, compassion, all represented.
So let's bring this together. What does this whole narrative arc, this deep dive into a fictional historical drama, what does it really mean for you, the listener, thinking about this today?
Well, I think the story uses that physical act of building that really difficult shift from easily destroyed wood to hard-won stone and brick as just the perfect metaphor.
For the early American experience.
Yeah, for that often painful, sometimes tragic melting pot where survival literally forced people to set aside huge ideological differences just to make it through the winter, just withstand the next raid. Necessity was the great leveler.
And the sources seem very clear on this point. The real America, if you like, is defined by that kind of grit.
Absolutely. That composite identity, African, Native, European, forged in the crucible of hardship, not by some simplistic stereotype.
So the key takeaway for you listening is how those intense challenges, the fire, the disease, the threat of capture,
they didn't just happen to these people. Those challenges directly dictated the specific skills they had to learn. masonry, herbalism. These weren't hobbies.
They were survival tools that ultimately created the community's legal standing and its physical strength. Knowledge became their shield.
Couldn't say it better. Knowledge is defense.
But the story doesn't quite end there, does it? There's a final note.
Right. The lessons learned are mobile. In the very final moments, Elizabeth gets a letter.
What does it say?
It suggests that Emma, the children's mother who was taken back to Georgia, she might actually still be alive, working near Savannah in the Deep South.
Wow. And Elizabeth's reaction?
Her final line is something like, "Our lessons travel further than we thought."
Which leaves us and you with a final question to think about.
Exactly. If the strength in Ohio was built on stone, on permanent structures designed for defense,
how does that knowledge, the mastery of brick, stone, herbs, how does that translate when the goal shifts? When it becomes about liberation, about potential reunion way down in the Deep South, what material form does that lesson take?
Yeah. What does strength through understanding look like in a completely different context? That's the question to mull over. The true value of any lesson, really, is how far you can carry it and adapt it.